Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to take a closer look at a very dramatic and shocking development, the story of 40,000 soldiers fleeing as Russia's 41st Army falls into total breakdown. This event has shaken not only the Russian side but also the observers around the world who are watching closely how the war dynamics are unfolding. To understand this collapse in detail, let's review it the way we usually analyze something big, examining the outward appearance of strength, the inside realities, the performance in action, the safety mechanisms that were supposed to protect it, the so-called unique selling points that gave this army its power, the enormous price being paid, and then finally wrap up with what it all means. When you look at the exterior, the 41st Army once appeared to be one of the toughest and most reliable parts of Russia's war machine. It was large in number, heavily armed, and presented to the world as a powerful striking force that could hold the line and press forward if needed. The very idea of 40,000 soldiers together gives the picture of a massive and intimidating formation. Tanks, armored vehicles, artillery, and strong logistic support painted the image of something unshakable. From the outside, this was like a fortress of steel and manpower, ready to dominate any battlefield it entered. But as history has often shown, sometimes what looks strong from a distance is not always so when you step inside. The interior of the 41st Army was not nearly as solid as its exterior. Inside the ranks, morale was low, discipline was crumbling, and the everyday life of soldiers was filled with shortages, confusion, and frustration. Reports suggest that many soldiers were tired of unclear objectives, poor supply chains, and lack of basic necessities. What should have been an organized and well-structured environment was instead a place of fear and disconnection. Commanders failed to inspire confidence, and the soldiers no longer believed in the mission they were being asked to fight for. This created a deep rift between leadership and the rank-and-file troops. The result was not just unhappiness but outright refusal to obey, with many soldiers abandoning their posts. That is why, when the pressure mounted, the interior collapsed almost instantly, even though the exterior image still looked powerful to outsiders just days earlier. Performance is where the truth is most clearly seen. An army's performance is not measured by numbers alone but by how effectively it carries out its tasks. Here, the 41st Army completely failed. Operations that should have been simple became impossible to execute because units were melting away, soldiers refused to fight, and equipment was left behind. Entire formations broke apart when they were needed most. Ukraine, facing this collapse, found openings to advance and expose weaknesses. The performance of the 41st Army was supposed to represent one of Russia's strongest cards, but instead, it showed the world what happens when an army lacks motivation, strategy, and unity. The soldiers may have been trained and armed, but without morale and leadership, their ability to fight effectively was gone. Safety features in a military sense are the systems that protect the army from falling apart, logistics that keep supplies flowing, leadership that keeps discipline intact, and support networks that maintain morale in tough times. But in the case of the 41st Army, these features were either broken or missing entirely. Supplies failed to arrive in time, commanders were disconnected from the reality of their troops, and the structure that should have prevented collapse simply wasn't there. Soldiers found themselves vulnerable, not only to enemy attacks but also to hunger, exhaustion, and hopelessness. The supposed safety net could not hold them together, and once the first cracks appeared, the collapse became unstoppable. This is a powerful lesson that no matter how many troops or weapons you gather, without strong safety mechanisms, the entire system is at risk of sudden failure. The unique selling points of the 41st Army were once its size and firepower. It was seen as one of the elite forces, designed to strike fear into adversaries and give Russia a major edge on the battlefield. Its presence alone was supposed to intimidate Ukraine and reassure Russia's allies that Moscow had full control of the situation. Ironically, the very size of the force has now become the symbol of its downfall. Instead of being remembered as a mighty formation, it is now remembered for the fact that 40,000 soldiers fled. This dramatic reversal has turned the army's biggest strength into a global talking point about weakness. The breakdown has exposed that numbers and weapons cannot replace morale, leadership, and strategy. What once made it powerful has now made its collapse even more shocking and widely discussed. The price of this collapse is staggering. For Russia, the cost is not just the loss of soldiers but also the loss of credibility. Tens of thousands fleeing means a massive hole in their military structure, a severe shortage of manpower, and the waste of equipment that was abandoned. Politically, this damages Russia's image both at home and abroad. Domestically, it raises questions among citizens about why their military is falling apart, and internationally, it shows allies and opponents alike that Russia's control is slipping. The financial cost is also huge, as billions of dollars worth of weapons, supplies, and training have gone to waste. For Ukraine, on the other hand, this collapse is priceless because it opens the door for advances and builds confidence that victory is possible. The price Russia is paying is measured not only in resources but also in reputation, and that damage may take years to repair, if it can be repaired at all. In conclusion, the fall of the 41st Army is like watching a massive machine collapse from the inside out. The exterior strength, the weapons, and the large numbers meant nothing when the interior was weak. The performance was poor, the safety systems failed, and the supposed unique strengths turned into points of weakness. The cost of this breakdown is enormous, and it will go down in history as a turning point that showed the limits of power when it is not supported by morale and structure. What we learn from this is that no matter how big or intimidating an army may look, if the people inside it do not believe in the mission, if they are not cared for, and if leadership fails them, collapse is inevitable. The story of 40,000 soldiers fleeing is not just about one army. It is a reminder for the world that true strength lies not in numbers but in unity, discipline, and trust. Thank you for staying with us through this review of events. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more detailed breakdowns and explanations of major global developments.